Let's talk about creating for legacy and not just for the now. You've got to ask yourself, as a creator, as someone who's building a brand in public, is this thing that you're doing, is it for the algorithm, or is it for something that's going to last for longer? It is so easy for us to chase the numbers, to try and get the likes, the subscribers, the comments, to focus purely on viral formats. I mean, there's even the sort of dopamine hit of the creator, not just the consumer. I've talked about this actually in one of my podcast episodes on systems and questions. It's called A Shot of Wi-Fi. You can find that on my Substack as well as on my podcast. It's all linked. But, if you are a thoughtful creator, founder, brand builder, then you are interested in the long game, in the decades ahead, not purely this week's virality. So if you're here for this video and so far it's sort of hitting the right uh, curiosity, inquisitive points, then please do subscribe and like and comment. I would love to hear from you, really helps my channel. So every piece that you are putting out there as a piece of content, or even an email newsletter to your stakeholders, um, you can sort of check it, like be the editor, have an added filter before you go ahead and sort of publish or send, and ask yourself, is this for now? Does this have legs for later as well? As in, will this leave much more of a stamp, or am I just so purely just in the now? Um, so many people use this sort of thought leader title, and I don't know how much of their sort of daily output is about leadership, because leaders tend to forecast and leaders tend to take decisions, make calls that are with an agenda and a strategy in mind. And it's not just for the now. And you've got to kind of bring people along the journey with you as much as possible. They've got to be able to trust you. They may not see the big picture, but you've got to bring them with you. And so, are you operating with that kind of long game, a bigger picture in mind, or is it just for the week's hits? Is it just to get the subscribers? So before you do that posting, before you do that emailing, before you go ahead and just say that thing which just sounds very jargony and just for the now, just check. Hang on a second. Is this something that I am going to be happy about in a year's time? Does this feel like I am challenging my audience? Am I challenging myself right now? Or am I just sort of repeating and regurgitating things? Is this just because it's trending? And I think when you ask yourself these questions in this way, when you are creating, when you're publishing, when you're putting anything out there, you are doing yourself uh, a great favor. You are investing in yourself, and the future you will thank you for it. But, you've got to be able to sort of have measures in place that allow you to do this kind of thing regularly. I found that once I started my postgraduate study in systems thinking, I found that, okay, this is actually forcing me to really get into the sort of depth and breadth of things. I'm not just sort of in that kind of super little tunnel vision now. This is actually allowing me to get into the kind of depth and discipline that I have not been able to get to because of my day to day. And that kind of has challenged me, it has really challenged me and helped me to choose projects, to choose outputs that favor the long game and the long term me, and not just the me now. It's actually why I shifted my strategy for my content. I do a lot less, uh, far fewer short form pieces. And it's why I launched my Systems and Questions podcast. And I'm not new to podcasting, started podcasting in 2016. Um, this sort of new dedication to longer form content and content that is informed by a lot of my writing as well feels much more, it feels a little bit more sort of nerdy and a little bit more thoughtful, but it added more rigor to what I do and what I offer. And, I reflected a lot on this because I thought about my day to day work and I thought about what I do, like the actual thing that you do. So, as an example, let's just say you're an artist or you are a gardener or you are an accountant. Okay. The actual work that you do requires a lot of time, attention, your expertise. It's it's offline. You put a lot you have put a lot of hours, days, months, years into your discipline, into your specialism, into your work as a practitioner. Then we come to sort of content creation, and our digital communications. I feel like that output then does all of that quality a disservice. That sort of high end quality of sort of deep expertise gets sort of a raw deal because we're trying to feed an algorithm. And I think that is not great for our brands. And so I think it's really important that we look at how we are uh, creating. And is it, it's not just about sort of pleasing our legacy or pleasing the algorithm, is does it do all of our sort of value and expertise sort of a disservice? Is it actually making a fair representation of everything that we do and everything we have to offer? Because if it doesn't, then we shouldn't be doing it. And that can be quite damaging to your brand, actually. Or it could just kind of end up really watering down the quality of what you have to offer. Um, and we don't want to do that. Um, to kind of really dilute the value that you have to offer and to almost not care, like it's actually being quite careless with your brand, with quite careless with all of your expertise, all your years, or let's just say if you're new at something, but your months of dedication, your months of practice, that is not great. It's not fair. But I think what ends up happening is that it's so far from a consideration when you get into this kind of content place, and you get into this kind of content space, this kind of digital communication space. um Putting that first when you're trying to, when it's a numbers game, no, forget about it. It's just, look at, is this what it's come to? Is this where we have come to, that we are now so far from being considerate about our, our expertise, our study, our time and attention and energy that's gone into all of um, this craft that we have, this thing that we offer, because we're just trying to feed an algorithm or we're trying to get the numbers. And I think as a creator, as a thinker, as somebody who's within offline spaces as well, I find that my consumer habits kind of sort of reflect my creator habits. And as soon as I consumed differently, I began to create differently. This is another, I think, question is, are you consuming material similar to what you're creating? Because as soon as I started to value more long form content and deeper um, intel, not just because of what I was studying, but because of my preferences, I found that I was less likely to produce short form content that felt quite disposable. And so I want to ask you that question. Are you finding that as well? I would really love to hear from you in the comments. So just definitely like, definitely comment, definitely subscribe. I am Serena. I have more than 20 years in comms and media. I'm a chartered public relations practitioner on the last legs of my MSc. I'm studying systems thinking. I'm actually doing my research right now. And it's a really wonderful time, I think, with a load of uncertainty. And so as a brand, as a creator, what are you most concerned about? I'd love to hear from you. More links of what I do are provided, and I'll see you in the next one.